So guys, it's Johnny and welcome to episode 59 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. I'm here with Phil Bourdeau from HammockUniverse.com.
Hi Johnny, happy to be here.
Yeah, cool. I'm really glad you're on, especially because you have a really good, cool story about your e-commerce store. And it's nice to have someone who openly talks about their niche and how they kind of went from a dropshipping store now to a full-blown e-commerce store where you manufacture your own products. So I definitely want to ask you about that. But first, how did we meet?
Well, I was here in Chiang Mai in the spring. Actually, I think it was about February when I started talking to some of the local guys here. I was working mostly out of Coffee Monster at the time. And one guy, when he found out that I was doing e-commerce fairly successfully, actually mentioned you. And he said, There's this guy you need to meet. He's doing really well as well. And why don't you meet him? So I think I sent you an email. We met for lunch.
Yeah, I remember that. I think we met at the salad concept.
Yep. Yep.
Which is basically the salad spot that entrepreneurs love going when they first get here, because you can, pick and choose whatever you want, and you can have bacon or chicken or whatever you want on it. And the only reason why I don't go there anymore is I started going there every day for lunch for weeks on end, and I'm just sick of it now.
I'm actually laughing. It's funny that you say that. I was just thinking that today. I had lunch there today, and I have lunch there maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and I have to find some alternatives because it's just too much.
Yeah, and I think when you first get here, you kind of want to break up the Thai food and have like more of a Western palate. But now that I've been here a while, I really love Thai food, and I'm okay with eating it all the time now. Mm.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Thai food as well. But as you say, after 3 or 4 days of purely and only Thai food, I need a big steak or something.
And we were just talking about where Philip can get a steak. So you have a kitchen in your new place?
I don't. I bought one of these elements, so I can pan fry stuff. Okay. I really don't do it very often, but I don't have a fully functional kitchen though.
Well, you know what's cool about being out here is people you can almost build your own little mini kitchen with one of these little burner elements, and you can get like a little toaster oven even to finish your steak. And if it's just you cooking for yourself, it's fine. So for me, I have like a little tiny convention oven in the corner. It's like basically a toaster oven. But if you're just cooking for yourself, you can absolutely make a steak out here. And what's cool about Chiang Mai is they actually have subsidized steak that I just told Philip about. At CMU is the Chiang Mai University. They sell their local grass-fed steaks for super cheap. So it's absolutely easy to eat healthy here. And like last week's episode was with Dave Asprey, the Bulletproof Executive. So if you're on a diet like that, or a paleo diet, you can absolutely eat healthy here, and it's cheap, right?
It is quite cheap, and the longer you're here, the more people you speak to, the more you start figuring this stuff out. You start getting the regular spots that you like to go to, and it becomes very easy.
You actually kind of look like a young Dave Asprey.
Is that a good thing? What does he look like? Is he attractive?
Yeah, handsome man, well built, 6-pack. So, and we'll make sure to put a photo, side-by-side photo of you on this episode, which is 59, and you're also from Canada. So Dave Asprey lives on Vancouver Island. I don't know if you've ever been out there.
I have once.
Oh yeah, how was it?
It was quite amazing. I wasn't there long enough to really give it a good. I'd have to be there longer to really judge. But the couple of days I was there, it's a beautiful place. Okay, so everybody's very active there. Yeah. Very active city.
I can imagine that. And so starting an e-commerce store from Canada, was there any specific challenges? And did you know right away that you wanted to sell to Canadians, or did you first think, maybe I should go into the American market?
I think it was the American market at first. I was more focused on. So it's such a big market. Now, were there challenges? We don't have enough time in an hour to start going over all of the challenges there were over the years. I've been doing this a long time. We actually launched in late 2001, and what this e-commerce thing was for me at the beginning was just kind of a hobby.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I worked, 9 to 5 in a regular office job. Just started this thing for fun, and it kind of snowballed over the years to the point where I was busy enough that I brought in a business partner, and my business partner started taking care of a lot of things that were taking up a lot of my time and preventing me from doing the things that grow the business, the things that I'm good at. And so I've had a business partner on board now for the last 5 years, and since he's come on board, growth has really been a lot stronger.
And was he a friend, or how did you meet this guy?
He's both. He still is a friend. Oh. And I was working with him actually in the same office.
Oh, okay.
Back in Ottawa. So
And then did you just go out to him one day and say, "Hey, I have this store"? I mean, was it up and running by then, or?
Yeah, it was up and running and selling. And we actually, it's a funny little story. We started a different niche. We started selling together Inuit art in Canada. So the natives in Canada, the Inuits have these beautiful soapstone carvings that they make. These are very expensive items. Like they could be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a piece. And so we whipped up a website and started doing that together. And we worked so well together that I said, hey, why don't you join what's sort of making a lot more money right now, Hammock Universe, and let's just go 50-50.
Oh, that's very cool. So what are his day-to-day responsibilities and what are yours?
So he's kind of the operational guy. He's in Canada. Unfortunately for him, he can't live this traveling sort of lifestyle. He can't just work from anywhere because he's got a family back home. So he takes care of the operational stuff. He does the bookkeeping for the business. He does a lot of the he's on Canadian time, so we get most of the chats come in during the times that he's actually awake. So he'll do a lot of the live chat, a lot of the customer service by phone as well. And he takes care of the logistics. So we import our products from China, which can be a big job, just figuring out the inventory, how much to order, taking care of all of that.
So I can imagine, but when you first started, it started as a dropshipping store?
It was. Okay. That's what I find so interesting around here. I see everybody, getting into this dropshipping business. And yeah, I did it for a few years. And for us, the next logical step was I got tired of selling somebody else's brand. Mm-hmm. And so we made those contacts, flew to China. Didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. Just kind of stepped off a plane, met one of our hosts, He took us into this factory. And I just remember thinking, wow, we're way too small to be here. Mm-hmm. They were making products with Walmart tags, Bed Bath & Beyond, and these orders were massive. I could see the amount of inventory on the floor.
Wow.
And they're giving us a tour of this factory. I thought, geez, when we tell them how many we want, they're just not even going to want to talk to us.
So do you remember how small or big your first order was?
Yeah, I remember sitting down after one of these tours, and for one of the hammock stands, they'd sat down, we served us some tea, and then I guess the sort of negotiation begins. They wanted to see how serious we were. And I think we mentioned that we wanted to order like 700 of these stands or something, and they I don't remember how much they wholesaled for, maybe $25, $30 a piece or something. Mm-hmm. And I remember the guy, like, there was a moment of laughter, but it wasn't malicious, but it was quite small compared to what they're used to. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, we've built those relationships over the years, and we've increased our volume since then.
And you were the same manufacturer still?
Some of them.
Okay.
Yeah, some of them. We deal with 3 or 4 different manufacturers at any time.
And is that to diversify, just kind of save your butt just in case, or were some not able to build certain things?
Yeah, it's more along those lines. Some are very good at certain things, and when you have a lot of SKUs, mm-hmm. you definitely want to go to the source, the one that's a specialist in a certain type of product.
Okay.
We have less. One of the biggest issues becomes quality control. Mm-hmm. And at this point, it's all about managing that quality control. And when you go to the manufacturer that's been making that same product for 20 years, and you could avoid a lot of those problems.
That makes sense. And for those who don't know those terms, SKU or SKU is a stock keeping unit, and it just means like a different variety of product.
Right. The amount of products that you have. Yeah.
So that's awesome. So it's cool knowing that someone could start out with a dropshipping store and then decide, hey, this is working. These products are obviously selling. I have the website up and running. Now all I have to do is, fly to China or maybe even look on Alibaba and start importing it.
I think that's what was great about the experience is once you have your dropshipping store up, running, converting, you've learned how to run the store. Mm-hmm. And the transition into making that product your own is not that difficult.
So once you started importing your own products, did you keep the other brand on there as well, or did you just phase them out?
At first we did. So we had some brands from different hammock manufacturers, and then we imported most of them ourselves. And so we slowly moved away from others and just figured that we just want to brand our own.
Okay. And I'm sure your profits went up a lot?
It was, John, it was one of these big moves that you make in business that mm-hmm. was completely transformative. And I think that these things that you do, and there's, I could think of 3 or 4 of them in the history of our business, are the ones that keep you up at night, and you're not sure if you're going to have a business the next day. And they're usually the ones, well, they're definitely the ones that make the biggest difference. And in our experience, they've always worked out.
Very cool. I'm glad they worked out. What are the other ones? So the first is deciding to start, manufacturing your own brand. Yeah. What else was
one of them for me was bringing on a business partner. You always think you can do everything yourself and you could do things better yourself. At one point, you have to let go of some of that and have some trust. That's worked out as well. Some of them were switching platforms. So we're all on Shopify now. I'm on Shopify as well.
Yep.
But we've gone through the gamut. We used to be on Magento. Before Magento, we were on the system called CubeCart. Before CubeCart, I had my own custom designed sites. What happens is every time you switch platforms to a completely different system, different site, it's almost a new business. You're not sure how Google's going to react. A lot of our sales comes from organic traffic from Google. So I've always been freaked out about losing a lot of my rank every time I've done that.
And has that been the case or not?
Never.
Wow. Okay.
Never. It's always been an improvement.
I think Google just likes seeing that you're doing stuff. Especially with e-commerce stores. I almost feel like they put us in a separate category, and they're like, these guys are e-commerce stores, they're selling physical goods. As long as they're updating and adding new products or just making changes, they are in business still.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the worst things that can happen to a Google searcher is going to a website that no longer exists or hasn't been updated since 2004.
Yeah, and that's pretty bad. As you know, I'm sure, more and more Google has been moving away from this traditional SEO model that we know, where you stuff a bunch of keywords on a page and you put your keywords in the H1 tag, and there's all these anchor text links that you can get, these backlinks. Now it's all about how users react to your website, and that's how Google judges the quality of a certain page. So of course, somebody hits an error page, boom, they're gone.
Yeah.
It's a bounce. So you want to have good quality content that is well related to the search terms that people are going to use to find your site.
So do you do any active SEO work, or did you just kind of leave that up?
I did. I've had phases. I've really been on cruise control on that for like a year. Our site naturally performs pretty well with the key metrics, so we do pretty well on SEO. And I've had phases where I did a lot of it. And every time it's been a worthwhile exercise. In fact, it's on my list of to-dos. I've used Moz.com before, which is a nice software. It fixed the internal stuff on my website, and that's something I'm going to do in the future as well. That's
cool. So you started selling in the U.S. market, and then did you focus on just Canada for a while, or did you do both, or how did that work?
Yeah, well, I was selling to both. And sales from the United States sort of trickled in. But what happened is our site ranked really well for Canada because, in the Webmaster Tools and everything, you tell Google you're a Canadian site. And when Canadians figured out we were Canadian, they're kind of over the moon because it's a less competitive market and they don't want to do any cross-border shipping. So it became more of a Canadian-centric site. So what we've done now, what we did last year is we launched an American site, HammockUniverseUSA.com. And what happened there, so we did it for SEO reasons, and now we're also warehousing products in the States, so they could get their products a lot quicker, and they don't have to deal with the cross-border stuff.
That's cool. So do people still, do American companies or customers still find the original HammockUniverse.com, or do they kind of just know to go to the Hammock Universe USA? Because that seems a bit confusing.
Both. Hammock Universe USA is actually picking up some steam now. I haven't really done much to it, to be honest. And again, that's on my list of eternal to-dos, is to really optimize that part of the business. But it's been picking up a lot of steam. So it's now ranked. Some of the pages are now well ranked on Google. So the Americans are hitting the American store, the Canadians are hitting the Canadian store. That's the ideal scenario.
And why didn't you choose like .com.ca or whatever the domain is?
Some bastard stole HammockUniverse.ca.
Oh, okay, that sucks.
Yeah.
And he had that before you started, or?
Yeah, I don't remember when it happened. I guess it kind of slipped. I think I owned it for a couple of years, and then I just didn't bother, and somebody picked it up. And then when I went to use it again, I didn't have it anymore. But it's not, I did consider doing that for SEO purposes, because I think Google does allocate some weight based on the .ca or .com. But what we've done now has worked out just fine.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the .com is still better. I mean, it's always going to be better than the .ca. I think the .ca is good if you are just starting out and you like, okay, I just want to focus on Canadian customers and I don't want to have too much competition. But now that you've been in the game for so long, then having the .com is still 100 times better.
Yeah, I agree. It screams a bigger business, global business, maybe inspires more confidence.
Yeah, and that's when I set up my stores, I always buy the .com. Even if it has to be a longer .com name, I'd still rather have that than a .biz or .net or .info or anything.
Right.
And, and that's just the way it is. I mean, beachfront property is always going to be worth more than, that inland.
Yeah, whether we want it or not, a premium's been associated to those .coms, and that's just the way it is, isn't it?
Yep. So, if you were going to start all over again, would you still start with dropshipping first, or would you have gone straight into importing?
Well, I think you almost have to. I didn't have any money.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge with branding is you need a big chunk of change to buy inventory. And you can't just buy a little bit of inventory and run out after a month and then have to take another 2 months to get the thing manufactured and shipped over again. Mm-hmm. There's some planning involved. So what we did is how do we swing it again? We had some reserves. I think we had, $40, $50, $60,000 or something we went in with. And there was a deal going on in Canada with one of the banks at the time. They had 0%. They had these checks that they'd write for 0%, but you had to pay the money back within 6 months.
Okay, nice.
So we did that in the spring before busy season. We both loaded up with these checks, and we were able to afford our inventory for the whole year that way. And now we're in a nice position where we do have the cash reserves every year to buy the inventory for the whole year. We don't have to borrow to buy that inventory. But definitely at the beginning, the dropship is what allowed us to build the capital.
And I told everyone the same things. Even if they know they want to manufacture, why not start with a dropshipping store? Because it doesn't cost anything. You could still manufacture. You could still do the research for it while making money testing it.
Absolutely.
Instead of losing money testing a new website or a new product, why not make money testing it? And if anything, you gain valuable insights doing it.
Absolutely. You learn the ins and outs of how to run a web store in every different facet of the business. And once the concept is proven, then the next logical step is, of course, to brand out.
Yeah, 100%. So I like that. How did you first learn to set up your store? It sounds like you did a lot of trial and error, switching platforms multiple times, and I'm sure each time of that was a huge headache.
Every time. Every time.
How did you figure this stuff out? How did you start?
Well, when I started, Johnny, the Shopifys of the world weren't around.
Yep.
I had a website custom designed on front page. I did a lot of it myself, and thankfully at the time, I had a girlfriend that was a web designer, so she helped out with a lot of the stuff. And I just sort of whipped this custom design. It had no back end. I whipped it together. I used this company called Internet Secure or something like that to do my processing. It used to take like a massive percentage of my sales. It was crazy. But I got a few sales off that site, and that kept me going. That was a horrible website. And slowly things progressed in the world of e-commerce where you had these shopping carts show up. I think you had Miva, which was one of the first ones. You had, all the OS Commerce and the Preloaded and all of those things. And, I remember working with those for hours and hours just trying to figure everything out. They were so complex. But, got them figured out.
So I'm sitting here nodding my head like I know what he's talking about. I've never even heard of any of these terms, any of these shopping carts.
Old school.
Well, all right, so I'm sure you're going to agree, but starting a store, especially a dropshipping store, is a million times easier now than it would have been 10 years ago.
It's so amazingly easy, and people using Shopify should realize how easy they have it. Shopify's done a really good job at making things so simple.
Yeah, and it's even though it sucks to have to pay them every month, I'd much rather pay them $30 or $80 a month and have them deal with all that stuff than me. And the reason why I've never heard of these other shopping cart terms before is like when I started, Shopify was literally the only thing I heard of, and in Anton's course, he said, okay, look, guys, I've tried every other one. I've chosen Shopify. I suggest you do the same. So I didn't even look at anything else. I just said, okay, well, if this guy recommends this, I'm just going to use Shopify.
Yeah.
And I don't really care why, or what the pros and cons are of the other ones. I'm just going to use it, and it's been fine.
Well, you got lucky. You chose the right one right off the bat. That's for darn sure.
Well, what's nice is it wasn't that I chose it. It was someone else basically in your kind of like in your shoes, went through all that. He started I think he had a Yahoo store before. He had a WooCommerce. He had a BigCommerce store, and he did all that. He did just like you. He changed back and forth, and then he settled with Shopify. So it was that experience where, as long as you listen to this guy because he's done it, or listen to you who's done it, it saves us so much time.
Yeah, I spoke to Anton, and he said the same thing. He used to be on a different system, Magento as well, I believe.
Oh wow!
And I remember being on that when our websites were on that system, having a local programmer in Ottawa that I used to Google chat with him every day, and he must have had to work with us 3 or 4 hours a day on that way. It was crazy, the amount of maintenance, the amount of bugs, the amount of things that would break on the site. And then my brother, actually, this is the reason I got into Shopify in the first place. They're actually from Ottawa, from the city which I'm from, and my brother got a job with him.
Oh wow! Okay.
And he started talking to me about the Shopify models. I met some of the guys at Shopify, and I figured out that it was like a match made in heaven. So then we had another one of these big switches from Magento to Shopify.
So we talk about Shopify a lot. I actually have nothing to do with Shopify. We just really like them. But they actually are a sponsor of the show now, and they give everyone 20% off for life, which I'm sure you would have loved to have used as well. Because if you can get 20% off your bill now, it'd be awesome. Unfortunately, I can't get 20% off my bill now either, so I actually pay the full amount. I pay $80 a month. But if you're starting a new store, you can use the link. It's under the recommended resources page of Travel Like a Boss podcast and on JohnnyFD.com.
For all this promotion, Johnny, I think they should give you all the stores you want for free for the rest of your life. Come on. Come on, give them a call.
But I did. I've actually hounded them saying, like, look, I sent so many people to use your service, and they basically responded saying, look, we could see how much money you're making with your store. Why are you trying to save $80 a month? You're sending like $30,000 worth of revenue through your stores. So I'm sure you're happy with your Shopify experience. And then, like, at the end of the day, I'd much rather make money from my actual e-commerce store than save $80.
Yeah, right.
So HammockUniverse.com, if you guys want to check it out, it's basically make some really cool looking hammocks. How did you think of this niche?
Yeah, everybody asked me that, and it's way back in the day. I was actually looking for a hammock in my city, and I couldn't really find a good, comfortable hammock that was cheap enough that I could afford, really. And I got looking online, and one of the things that popped up was this wholesaler out of Mexico he's a Mexican guy, but he hired these villagers to weave these like Mayan-style hammocks. Mm-hmm. And I saw how cheap he was selling them, and I compared that to the price he was selling for that I'd seen elsewhere, and and the light just went off. Got my ex-girlfriend to help design a website, and it just all went off from there.
I think the most successful niches and website businesses have similar stories where you personally were trying to buy something and it was a pain in the butt. So, you decided, hey, why not make it easier for everyone else? I've already been through the research myself. I almost couldn't find it. So why not make it easier for everyone? And that's the same thing I do for all my businesses. And even to today, you can do two routes. You can either do your research and kind of just think of 100 different things that might fit that criteria and do your research to see, hey, is this going to sell or not? Or you could just think of the things that you've personally bought or that you can kind of help out other people with, and then you can just do a quick look. I would still suggest people do a little bit of research and see what your competitors are like, and if it's if it's even feasible selling online. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you actually know something about the product, you have some skin in the game. Mm-hmm. I think it does sell a lot better. I agree,
and I think these days with the emergence of e-commerce in the last years, like everything sells. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like no matter what you decide to sell these days, there is going to be some competition. There's nothing that's a complete virgin market out there. So it just comes down to doing things better, smarter, more efficiently than the competition, I think.
Well, what's actually cool is there are so many different products out there in the world and the way I think of it is if somebody's making money selling it, why not you?
Yeah.
But the thing about the actual direct competition, so me and Larissa have started a new store. We're trying to get it up and running within 30 days, and we're about 20 days into it. So if you guys keep an eye out on my blog, Johnny FD, we've been posting every week on our updates. And the niche that we chose is something that doesn't have any other dropshipping stores out there. So it's actually kind of against what Anton recommends for your first store. In his course, he talks about how you actually want other dropshipping stores out there, because that shows that, first off, it's making money, and then second, that these suppliers and manufacturers are actually approving dropshipping only stores and not just big retail locations like Dick's Sporting Goods stores or these like a Target, things like that. So I was actually kind of surprised that there weren't that many dropshipping stores for our niche, and it just kind of shows that there are still the untapped markets out there. But you just have to kind of think outside the box, and it wasn't any magical selection. Everyone always thinks, it's you have to know like Google Keyword Planner, or you need to know these like crazy algorithms. I literally just asked, people I talked, friends. I'm saying, hey, what have you bought online recently, or what would you suggest? And you get a lot of bad ideas, and you get some good ones.
How long did it take you before your eureka moment went off and you actually found this product?
So I haven't built a new store in a while, just because I've been kind of coasting off my existing stores. But I keep niches in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And I think it was a friend. We just had dinner a few months ago, and he was, I think he had just mentioned, he's like, what you should sell? You should sell, XYZ. And usually it's the terrible ideas. Usually people tell you, you should sell baby powder online, or something. But I always keep, open ear. And sometimes they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe that would do well. And I don't get too overly excited about it, because I want to do my research about it first. And I think that's the other part that kind of messes people up, where they get so attached to an idea even before they do the research on it. Like if you're a musician and you're like, what's going to sell so well is, musical instruments, or like a very specific part of it. And they haven't even looked to see what the competition is. Yeah. They haven't looked to see, what the kind of, what's out there. Yeah. And they're so focused on just having that work that they don't even look anywhere else.
Yeah.
So what I do instead is I really try to keep an open mind.
Yeah. I'm not sure, you probably watched Shark Tank, the TV show.
Love it.
That's what made me realize how emotionally attached people get to their businesses and products, too much so. When, oftentimes they'll make a presentation, everybody will tell them how much of a stupid idea it is.
Yep.
They've remortgaged their house or whatever, and every time in a post interview they'll say that no way they're going to give up this idea, the dragons are wrong, and they're just going to continue, and they're like losing all of their money.
I know. And you know what? Hard work and dedication does pay off if you kind of have the right thing. But what I would say is, if you think it's going to work, start making money with it today. Start testing it today. And that's why I like the dropship model. Is if you even if you kind of pick a stupid niche, you're probably not going to invest that much time or money into it until you realize, hey, it's not going to work. Because but if you design something completely brand new, start importing, and you have to then you have to mortgage your house to get the inventory, and then you find out it doesn't work, then you're screwed. Yeah. And I feel bad for those people.
Yeah. And the nice thing, as you say about the dropship model now, is there's not a lot of capital that's actually required. You don't have to buy the inventory. You just have to whip up a store, which costs you peanuts, really.
Yep.
And we've done that through the years. We launched, at one point we actually rebranded into a site called Trika.com, and we were selling all these luxury products on there, like these beautiful water features, these water fountains and stuff.
Okay.
And although there was a little bit of momentum, we U-turned off that. It took me a few months to realize, hey, wait a minute. We went from a very strong brand that's getting organic searches left, right, and center to, a new brand where we're trying to sell 5 different products. We're not as niche, this and that. And I think you make those mistakes, through the years. And so that was about 3-4 years ago. We U-turned, and I'm happy that we did.
And how much, money did you actually have to invest to start that out?
At the beginning, we were just testing the product, so we did the same thing you would do. We'd call the manufacturers and just get on their supplier list and just sell through our website. So we didn't load up on inventory, but the plan was that we would the things that would sell, we would buy direct from China. eventually.
So super smart. You can learn from your own lessons and say, you know what, why not have someone else take the risk?
Yeah.
And then test it, see if people want to buy it. Because the thing is, you never know what people are actually going to buy, and you never know what kind of weird questions or return you might get for something.
Right.
So you might as well test it with someone else's product first.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of this model. So I was looking at your site earlier, and I could see why it does well. It has great design, great layout, beautiful photos, and even little touches like having the phone number, right up top so people can see, hey, we care about customer service and it's easy to contact us. I mean, how many calls do you actually get a day?
A blessing and a curse, Johnny.
Okay.
It's also a curse.
Is it?
I mean, I guess it's a nice problem to have, but we get too many people calling us. We get too many people using the live chat as well. What you try to do is you try to minimize that through, a proper frequently asked questions section, and you try to answer all the questions in the product specs. But there's a large percentage of people still these days that want to hear a human voice to reassure them before they go through the conversion. And we haven't been able, I've wanted to remove these aspects from the site and have it be totally passive, not have to answer the phone, not have to worry about the live chat. But what we've realized is the level of conversions is so high off both of those mediums that we can't.
Yep.
We can't get rid of them.
Yeah, and
outsourcing is scares the daylights out of me. I've got like a lot of SKUs. You need to know your stuff.
You have to know your products. And I think that actually the easiest way wouldn't be to outsource it. It actually would be to hire a kind of a lower paid employee to do stuff like that.
You mentioned that's what you do, right? How does that work out for you? What's been your experience?
So if we were bigger, I would love to have someone just full time working for me. But what I actually did was I went on Odesk and a lot of these other freelance sites, and I just hired someone to do my customer service. But my whole plan, for that was to make them into an employee, like a part-time employee, and say, I want you to working, 2 hours a day, but be available on call 8 hours a day. And in the beginning, it didn't work out that well. I think I went through 2 different people that, kind of just dropped the ball. But then what I decided was like, let me find someone who doesn't really need my money, that is already working online, and is already, making money online, doing other things, but just happens to be near a phone all day. So I found a guy who does like copywriting or something for other e-commerce stores. So he's at his computer anyways, just he's writing all the time. And now I pay him $180 a month, and he answers my calls whenever they come in. And he does a little bit of follow up, a little bit of email, but that's really it. He doesn't have that much responsibility, and realistically, we only get a couple calls a day because with our higher priced items, we only need to sell 1 or 2 items a day, which means we only get 2 or 3 calls a day. Sure. Like how many calls are you actually getting a day?
I mean, in the summer period, it could be 20, 25 easy. Okay. We have the 1-800 number as well. That since it's free, it encourages people to call a lot more.
Okay.
Again, a blessing and a curse. I don't know, maybe 20, 25 a day or so.
So, I think with 20 or 25 a day, I would actually hire someone. I would find like a college student or someone.
It's, again, one of the things we've discussed a lot, and I agree with you. We should find someone. It's having that confidence to, off those 25 calls a day, there's a huge number of conversions there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it comes from inspiring a lot of confidence in the customer by answering questions in a very detailed way. Mm-hmm. So it's something that is actually on my marketing list to do, to properly outsource. We talk about it all the time. Just got to get to it.
So your business partner, does he work out of his home, or does he work out of does he work out of an office?
Yeah, we used to have an office and a warehouse when we shipped our own products, but now he works out of home.
And would he be comfortable having an intern or employee there?
I'm sure he would.
Yeah, I think that'd be the easiest way, is to have him, just right next to him.
Yeah. Clearly you figured it out. Mm-hmm. And what I like about your situation is you went through 2 people before you found somebody that worked out better.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's the difference, I think, between success and failure. So you didn't just throw your hands up and say, boy, this is a shitty way to go about things. I'm going to do my own customer. So you kept trying, and then you figured it out.
I think the reason why that happened is because I had to, because there's no way I can answer US calls while being in Thailand.
From here, of course.
Because the time difference is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally, I'd have to be up from 9 p.m. till 8 a.m.
Yeah.
answering my own calls. There's no way I'm going to do that. You know, because
Yeah.
I'm not a night owl. I work better during the day. I like, getting normal sleep, having a normal life. So I did that when I started my store a year and a half ago. I had my phone ring on through my Skype, and I would pick it up at 3 in the morning if I had to. And I would force.
That's really intense.
I forced myself to to be chirpy and like say, hey, thanks for calling. What can I help you with? Good morning, or and it's one of those things where if you want it bad enough, you'll do it. But I wouldn't encourage you to do that forever. Just do it, until you can afford to start paying someone. And $180 a month really isn't that much.
But it's another perfect example. I think the fact you were willing to get up at 3 in the morning, do this stuff, and there's some examples in the past in my business as well. That's an important message to put out there as well. These guys in Chiang Mai, there's a lot of them opening new stores, and it is a great journey, but it's also a tough one. And these are the things that you need to do. Stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, answer a phone call, and it's pretty intense.
Well, even with our new store, so me and Larissa have been staying up until. So it's not 3 in the morning, but we've been staying up till midnight, which for us is late because we're normally in bed by 10. And it's not even the midnight thing. It's that I like to unwind and just kind of read a book, maybe watch some TV at night. And I don't want to be on my laptop, and I don't want to call suppliers at 11 p.m. or at midnight. But because we're opening a store, I sucked it up. We had to do it. And honestly, it was tough. It was very tough, especially because the excuses pop up. Last week was American Thanksgiving. And right after that was Black Friday, and then Cyber Monday. And I just kept saying, this is not a good time to call because, they're busy, they're fulfilling orders, they're on holiday, et cetera, et cetera. And then on Tuesday night, we went to watch the Hunger Games, and we were going to call afterwards, but I was so tired, I wasn't in the mood. I was like, you know what, let's not do this today. And then on Wednesday, it's kind of the same thing. I'm like, I'm tired, I don't want to do this. But I knew that the longer I put it off and the more excuses we had, it would just never get done. Yeah. And I think, thank goodness that I announced this 30-day challenge that everyone's following and expecting me to do well, or I wouldn't have done it. I would have kept putting it off. So starting at 9 p.m., I started calling the people on the East Coast, just because the time difference is a little bit better. And luckily, we just by following through and pushing myself, we are now approved by 5 suppliers.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So the store is now going to be, up and running 100%. Our ads are going to start running. So hopefully by this time next week, we're going to start making sales.
That's great. You set that up. How much time did that take you? 3 weeks?
Yeah, so it's been 3 weeks. And the thing is, even though we've been doing it for 3 weeks every day, the first 4 hours of the day, we're still running my other store. And, we're still doing other things. I'm still recording podcasts. I'm still blogging. I'm still doing other things. So even though it feels... I
can't believe the amount of things you do.
It's insane, right?
God bless you. I would never get involved in a lot of things, because I would be too distracted. I would be thinking about Project C when I'm working on Project A, but God bless you.
It's definitely not the smartest thing to do, to be honest. If I just focused 100% on my dropshipping stores, I would actually make more money than I do now. But I don't like doing that because I get bored.
Right.
And I think I just have the personality where I like doing other things.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time promoting my book, even though from my income, it's the smallest part of my income. I would say promoting Life Changes Quick makes me 10% of my overall monthly income, but I spend 80% of my day promoting it because I really want people to read this book.
Sure.
I
noticed that in Chiang Mai, like a lot, just what you just said. Mm-hmm. I think entrepreneurs have a bit of a lot of them have a very active brain. It's sometimes a little bit ADD, and they've got their hands in they're so interested by so many things and have so many ideas. They're overflowing that they have their hands in so many pots. And in your case, you've actually made it work. But I've seen so many that start projects and then
never
boom,
finish it.
They never finish.
But I think it only worked because when I started with one. So when I started, I just did my first thing I made money with online is my first book, 12 Weeks in Thailand, which was based off my Muay Thai blog. And when I was doing that was my sole focus. And when I started dropshipping, the first store, that was 100% of my focus for the first 6 months.
Right.
And it's not until I've become successful with that, and now it's pretty much a semi-passive. It's not passive. I still work on it at least 1 or 2 hours a day. And if I want to grow it, I work on it up to 4 hours a day. But now I can afford this luxury of having extra time to do other things. But if you are not making money yet, and you don't, you're not, basically, if you're not making enough where you can afford to do other things, don't do other things. So I would recommend that.
Sure. I can definitely attest that in my situation, there's always so much to do for my business. And I recently got involved in FBA as well, so that's taking up some of my time. But there's so many things to do on that list. It's a never-ending list of 50 things to do that that's what I need to focus on. Because if I was doing, a couple of different things, I know myself, I would be too distracted. I'd be thinking about the other things while I'm doing the first thing. So I really need to focus on one thing at a time.
So how is the Amazon FBA doing?
It's doing well. I actually just threw up 100 products there just to test. And they sold out.
Okay, cool.
The nice thing, there's advantages and disadvantages to everything, I think. And so the advantages, in my opinion, of Amazon are that the whole customer acquisition thing is pretty much taken care of by them, which is crazy.
Yep.
I mean, that's what we have to work at, like dogs in a Shopify business, That being said, there are disadvantages as well. The audience is very price conscious. You'd be competing with 100 other merchants, no matter what you're doing. You have to invest a significant amount of money to get up and running, to get the inventory in there. And Amazon take their cut.
They take a big cut.
And I think the scariest thing about it, well, for me, is that Amazon are God. You're playing in their sandbox. Yep. And when the fees aren't going to go down anytime soon, they are going to realize that, hey, there's a lot of people making a lot of money off FBA. There's a little bit more room to raise the fees here. And this is going to happen, I think, a lot over the next few years. Who knows what FBA is going to look like in 2-3 years. That being said, the fact they take away the customer acquisition is huge. So it can really be a nice passive income. I'm planning on sending in a lot more stock, that's for sure.
So I think the way that you're doing it is very, very smart, because it doesn't hurt you at all to have your products selling on Amazon as well. And so FBA is fulfilled by Amazon. We've talked about this in other episodes, but basically what Phil is doing is he's sending 100 or now probably a lot more of his units to Amazon's warehouse, where they keep it. He puts the product on Amazon to sell, and if someone buys it, Amazon ships it out. They deal with the shipping, they deal with the returns, they deal with the customer service, they deal with the calls, all that. They just take a big cut, which to a digital nomad is an awesome idea, because that's extra money. Even though your percentage you might be making, profit is much lower than if you sold it yourself, also is the work. But I think what Phil's doing that's really good is he's also having that build his brand, because a lot of people might go directly to his site to buy it instead, or maybe not that person. That person might be a loyal Amazon customer. They might have Prime, and they just always buy from them. But when someone comes to their house, to their backyard, and they see, oh wow, this is a beautiful hammock, who makes it, or they see the tag that says Hammock Universe, they will associate that name, and they might come and buy directly from you.
It's a great way to put it. And for the longest time I was thinking, geez, I don't remember the percentage of Americans that buy on Amazon and only Amazon, but it's huge. 20, 25, 30% or whatever it is. And that's a big piece of the pie that we were missing out on. So it's good to be there now.
Yeah, and Amazon eventually will kind of screw themselves over. I really do think so.
Do you?
Yeah, because there's a lot of products that used to be cheaper on Amazon and now are actually a lot more expensive, because I think they were actually losing money selling on Amazon. I think they just kind of, in the beginning, they just really wanted everyone to buy everything on Amazon all the time. A good example is if you guys have Prime, which is the free 2-day shipping. And often what you do is you'll search for products that are shipped Prime only, because you don't want to pay for shipping. You're so used to this 2-day shipping. But I guarantee you, if you search some of those products and uncheck that box, you'll see that it is actually much cheaper to buy it without the free 2-day shipping. And even if you just pay for shipping with it, or get the standard shipping, or if you go off of Amazon and you just Google the product, it's often cheaper there as well now. So Amazon, what they've been doing has been very smart for them, is they want to build their loyal customer base and get people on Prime. They lose money often shipping free with free 2-day shipping, but they know that makes you a loyal customer that, and that's their goal, is for you to never even price compare anywhere else. So I think that's the only good thing about, having our own stores, is eventually, people will figure out, hey, you know what, it's not always the best deal going through Amazon. And eventually they will kind of, come straight back to you as well.
Sure, it's a great thing, and it's a great protection mechanism for your brand and your business as well. Is I think if all your eggs are in the Amazon cart, there's a lot of risk involved there. And I know some of the guys here in Chiang Mai that are doing very well on Amazon, and their next step is to build out a Shopify store, because of the fact that Amazon could do anything at any time that could drastically affect their business.
Yeah, and even though I'm on Shopify's platform, I own the domain, I own the back end of everything, I own all the customer lists. So what I do is I actually export my customer list pretty often, so I have it on my own hard drive instead of having it just on Shopify. I don't think Shopify is going anywhere. They're a big company, but if I ever needed to, I could just basically upload my theme, upload my customer list, export my downloaded list of products onto another platform or onto WordPress or my own, and I can have my store up and running within a week again. So that's why I'm not scared to have my stuff on Shopify. Because at the end of the day, it's still, I still own all that stuff. Versus on Amazon, we don't own anything.
Sure, there's a lot more control as well. You could build out the site the way you want to build it out. You just don't have just a static product page that Amazon force you to build a certain way. Lots of advantages, I think, to having your own store as well. So
even though you started out as a dropshipping store, now you are basically a supplier. You're a manufacturer. I'm curious, does anyone ever call you asking if they can resell your products?
All the time.
Yeah?
You started a trend.
Really?
We actually get, especially in the summer months, we get multiple emails or calls every day. But it hasn't been... I wish guys like you were involved with our products, because you'd sell a lot of them. What you have is I think you have a lot of people just testing the waters. They'll throw up a website. They'll think it'll come very easily. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months later, we just never hear from these guys again. So there's a certain amount of time invested when they first contact you. We've got to, from the supplier side, we've got to sort of teach them about our products a little bit, and they've always got a lot of questions. So there's a lot of time involved in the setup. And then if they don't sell, that time is wasted.
Yep.
So guys like you, I guess, if you're able to convince a supplier, you've had previous successes with other stores, that must go a long way.
So now, when was the last time you actually approved another online store to sell your products?
My business partner handles most of that, but it happens all the time. So.
Okay, so he still does approve people.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. And so, what are things that you look for? I guess he'd be better to ask about that. But
well, we want to see that somebody's going to sell, because if we're going to invest the time, we want sales to obviously come in.
And that makes sense.
So we get a sense, in telephone conversation, see if they're serious about the whole thing, see what else they're selling. We ask them if they have a website. If they've already got a website up, that would be huge. It shows that they're a little bit serious and that they've invested some time in this.
And so the reason why I have a pretty good success rate with getting approved by suppliers, so I might do this one day. It's just going to take so much time that I just... I'm just unwilling to do it, to be honest. But Anton suggests, he's like, why don't you record all of your conversations with your suppliers, and then, so people can listen to how hard you are hustling on the phone. And the reason why I'm not going to record it is because it's usually, it's at midnight. I'm so tired. The last thing I want to do is record something. And second, a lot of times it's spread out over 5 days. So for some of my suppliers now for my new store, I started calling them before Thanksgiving, and they either didn't pick up, or, I talked to them and they said, okay, check back next week. And I literally have talked to them, 3, 4, 5 days in a row. Even, some of them will actually say, okay, yeah, no worries, I'll send you over an email, email with the application, and then I won't get it. So instead of emailing them, I call them again. And I think what happens is after they hear my voice 3, 4, 5 days in a row, they start thinking, man, if this guy is calling us so often, following up so well, he must do that with his customers. He must provide really good customer service if he's, if he's this serious about getting approved, versus someone who's scared to even call the supplier in the first place, and just sends the email. versus someone who doesn't even have a demo store up at all.
Sure.
Doesn't have anything to show. Those people, if I was a supplier, I wouldn't approve them.
Sure. It shows that you go the extra mile for sure.
Yeah.
Extra effort.
And absolutely, and it really doesn't take that much time to set up a demo store. For us, I think it took about 3 days to get the basic store up and running, and then it took about 5 days to get to really get it fully functional. Where any supplier that I called that would look at our store would assume we've been in business for a long time and that we know what we were doing.
Sure.
And they could see like, okay, you know what, I can see my products selling well on here. And, and that's why there's a whole module of Anton's course where he talks about how to set up, where he actually shows you step by step to a screencast on how to set up a demo store, how to make it look like you've been in business for a long time. Sure. The key parts that, that people look at, potential suppliers will look at so you can get approved. And I think a lot of people just starting out that they're afraid to even do the $10 investment of buying a domain name and setting up a free trial store. Those people don't do well because they're not committed.
Right. Now most people just send an email, to be honest. We usually get an email, and I had this conversation with my business partner a couple of months ago. We considered not even replying anymore. Mm-hmm. It doesn't show a lot of effort, and those people, to be honest, almost 100% of the time don't work out. Mm-hmm. They don't make any sales. Most of them will throw up a store, but there's minimal effort, and there are no sales. So from the supplier side, if somebody like you would call, have a conversation, that would be huge.
Yeah, so you heard it direct from not only myself, but also Phil, the actual owner of a of a store. Call. Don't stop taking shortcuts, put in the effort. You have to treat it as a real business. So imagine if you were to start a physical location brick and mortar store that sold hammocks. You'd still have to go through the same process. You'd still have to call a supplier and say, hey, can I sell your products? What's your wholesale price? Can I open a wholesale account with you? And I guarantee that if you're spending the money to build a store, you wouldn't just send one email and give up.
Yeah. Don't be lazy, I think is the message.
Yeah, and these are legitimate stores because how much revenue are you guys selling per month?
It depends on the month, but we're doing over. We're going to do over, with all of the stores combined, we're going to do over $500,000 this year.
See, and if that's insane if you think about it, that it's a website, right? Without having your own warehouses or even an office anymore, you guys are still selling $500,000 a year of hammocks, which is insane to think about.
I feel we're just getting started. There's a lot of room. Most people think hammocks, okay, you're topped out. That not even close.
Really?
There's so many things I could and should be doing that I'm not doing.
I'm excited for this. And so if you were, so let's say you didn't have these websites, you weren't online, and you were a store in Ottawa, and you were selling hammocks. Do you think that you can do $500,000 in revenue?
I would listen to this podcast and I would change my business strategy overnight.
You really would?
Yeah. I look at these. There's nothing wrong with stores. We all like them. We all shop there. But boy, that's a difficult model with many disadvantages versus what we're doing these days, isn't it?
Because so let's say you had a physical store. All right. First off, how much would your rent be per month?
Oh, geez. If you're in Canada, or I think you're from San Francisco with insane rents. Right there, the overhead is a couple of grand a month, right off the bat at least.
Yep, and then you'd have to have a couple employees, right?
Yep.
And you have
a lot of headaches right there.
Yep. You'd have to have furniture and displays, and I don't know. You'd have to have a lot of stuff.
You'd have to have so many things. It's just to me, it's a nightmare. I want to make the most amount of money possible for the least amount of effort required, and I think that is online,
I like it a lot. So it's been really cool having you on this podcast. If someone wants to buy a hammock, and these are very cool hammocks. I personally am a huge fan of hammocks. When I lived in Phuket, and in Koh Lanta and in Koh Tao, so basically on all the islands I've lived at, I've always had a hammock. And I always told myself, I said, why don't people have hammocks in their backyard? And if I lived even back in San Francisco, I would absolutely own a hammock just because it's almost like a little escape where, if you want to read a book, if you want to just chill out for a while, like just hang it, on a tree or, on a stand, I guess. There's really no reason not to have a hammock. So if you guys want to buy one, where can they get one?
So you can, if you're in Canada, so hammockuniverse.com is our Canadian site. And if you're in the U.S., then we ship from the U.S. at hammockuniverseusa.com. We have a French site as well, but I don't think you have a lot of French people listening to your podcast, so I'm not going to plug that site.
Okay, very cool. Now, what I'll do is I'll have links to all of this on episode 59 under the show notes of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. Phil, thanks so much for being on the show. Any other way to keep in touch with you? Twitter?
Yeah, we have at Hammock Universe is our Twitter. Same on Facebook. We have a Facebook page as well, so anybody could contact us through those mediums as well.
Okay, cool. And if you guys ever come out to Chiang Mai, we're all out here hanging out. So be in touch, guys. Make sure you read the book. Life Changes Quick. And
nice plug.
See you guys next week.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.